Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Grow Your Path to Wellness. Last week, if you missed it, we hosted Dara Hoffman Fox. I always want to say Dara for some reason, so sorry, Dara Hoffman Fox. And we talked all about how we can increase awareness and inclusivity for transgender and non-binary folks. And this week, we welcome our guest, Morgan Bennett, and we'll be covering kind of the intersection and just the impact and kind of a few different things today, but traumatic brain injuries, anxiety, and trauma. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, welcome everyone. Before we get started and have Morgan introduce herself, I did want to take a moment to acknowledge it is the Hallmark calendar holiday of Mother's Day. And, you know, we wouldn't be great mental health professionals and advocates if we didn't acknowledge how difficult and beautiful and celebrated this holiday can be. So the range of emotions for this holiday, the reminders, the memories that come up on your social media, we see you, we understand that range of emotions and what that can look like. And whatever you're feeling today, it's totally valid. Your grief, your love, your connection, you know, your trauma, all those things. So did want to take a moment to mention that because I think it's important. Okay, Morgan, welcome.
Yes. Thank
Can you tell us? I'm so excited.
Me
so like
too. Oh, I am over the moon about this.
Morgan's been texting me like all week and she's like, I'm so excited. I can't wait to share. Like, I have so many things to tell you. So obviously I know a lot about you just because I know you more, but can you tell our listeners, like, who are you? How did you get to this role? Why, you know, what do you do now? And why are you so passionate about this topic today?
Yeah. So I am Morgan Bennett. I am 27 years old. When I was 21 years old, I was in an accident, not your typical car accident where there was a collision, but I actually did come out of a moving vehicle, and I hit my head on the frame of the car, and then I ended up on the road. So I did have a brain hemorrhage and I did break my skull. I don't have much memory of it at all, so I don't even really know what happened. It's a little wacky. I don't really remember being in the hospital, um, but I eventually did just kind of, get out of the hospital, and I didn't really understand exactly what had happened to me. I didn't understand that, this wasn't something that, you break a bone and you just put a cast on and you heal and you get better. So I am a nail technician. So I, went back to work because, I love my job. I'm so fortunate that I am able to enjoy what I do. And I just jumped back into work. Um, and I started realizing, oh, things are different now. I'm not normal anymore. This is weird. So now it is almost 6 years later, and I have learned a lot more about myself. I now have my own small business. So this having my own small business allows me to be a nail technician, and do what I love doing, but within my own private room. So I can control everything that goes on with inside my room, and I have made it just my own safe place, and also a safe place for my clients. But that is how I am able to still continue to work.
Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
like, it's different. Like I remember, as it wasn't, but my grandmother had a stroke, and it was very, very interesting. Not in like a good way. It was very hard, but to see those changes and for her to not realize it until she is in the moment of trying to do something, because like especially cooking or baking, and I won't go on and on, but I remember those moments for her, like whenever I would
Yes.
when I was there, and she was like, would get, either frustrated or not realize like, holy cow, that's not something that I have that same capability of like for anymore.
It's It's very frustrating. That frustrating is the absolute best word to describe it, because especially when you're so new into, even if it's not traumatic brain injury, whatever it is, if it's somebody that just developed Alzheimer's dementia, they don't understand what's going on with their own body, and it's scary. And everybody around you doesn't understand. Wait, why is Morgan acting like that? Morgan isn't the same, and they don't know how to treat you, and it can kind of put a strain on relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And do you mind sharing with us in our community some of the more difficult symptoms that you had to cope with, and just kind of how you've adjusted your life to accommodate those, and what's that
Yeah,
look?
of course. So I want to start out with that traumatic brain injury is like snowflakes. So every single traumatic brain injury is different, and everybody has different symptoms. So nobody is going to be the same. So what I experience, other people may experience it as well, or they may have totally, completely other symptoms. So I do have PTSD. And if you don't experience PTSD yourself, it's like your brain is literally putting you back into that moment. So I'll just be sitting in the kitchen, and say there's an ambulance that goes by, and that sound just triggers me. And my brain tells me, you are hurt. You are laying on the ground right now, you're with your brain hemorrhaging, and you are hurt. And you can't understand that, oh, I am at home in my kitchen, and you kind of have to realize, okay, I am in a safe place. One of my coping skills is I look around and I use my five senses of, okay, you know, look here. I can see that I'm home. I'm gonna pet my dog, and I can feel her, so I am safe. So that's how I've learned to cope with that. PTSD never really completely goes away. However, over time it does improve a little bit. Also, I have sensory issues, and I think this is something that other people can relate to, whether it's somebody that is on the spectrum, maybe autistic. That's maybe somebody else that has sensory issues that you can kind of pick up from this and be like, oh, that person also has this common thing. So for me personally, I have my main sensory issue is sound, audio. So my brain can no longer regulate sound. So it's really hard for me to regulate, okay, there's a conversation coming from over here. There's also a beeping noise coming from over here, and I can't regulate it all. And I get really overwhelmed. Um, so over the years, I have picked up a lot of coping skills for that. One of the best ones is my AirPods here that you guys have as well. I have the AirPods Pro that has a noise cancellation mode. If you don't have AirPods, just any sort of earplugs, if you can handle the sensation of that in your ear. Some people cannot handle the sensation, so maybe use over the ear headphones. Um, just finding whatever it is that can help you. Sometimes I'll wear sunglasses or some sort of, maybe a baseball hat, to kind of shield some of the things. So it really is all about finding these coping skills of how to go about doing life, in a regular normal way. Um, I think fatigue is also a very common one. Um, so I like to explain to people that we each have batteries inside of us. And maybe a normal, healthy person, your battery starts out at 100% when you get a full night, 8 hours of sleep. I get a full night's sleep with 8 hours, and my battery, let's say, starts off at 75%. So my battery just kind of doesn't hold a charge very well. So I have to just budget my energy. Say I'm going to go to the grocery store. I know the grocery store is going to take X amount of my energy, and I'm not. So I just kind of plan my day accordingly. Okay, I'm going to work a day, I'm going to go home, rest, you know, um, I think having safe places is an awesome thing to do. Explain all of these things to people. Say, hey, I use earplugs so that I can be okay. Hey, I need to go to my safe place and in a quiet area, whether it's your car or a bathroom, wherever you can find a safe place to just take a deep breath for a minute. That's really helpful. I will, if my boyfriend drove us somewhere, I will take his car keys. Let's just say the one day I was getting overwhelmed in the gym, so I took his car keys and, hey, if I get too overwhelmed, I'm booking out of here and I'm going to go to my safe place in the car. Um, and so everybody needs to understand how to respect those things. Also, me personally, I have no sense of smell, which is a little odd. It just kind of makes it hard for me to relate to other people. I haven't smelled anything in 6 years. So when somebody says, hey, can you take out the trash? It smells. I can't comprehend anymore what that means. The trash smells. I smell. I have I don't understand that, literally. So yeah, I think a lot of people can have a hard time understanding people that need to use these different coping skills and, you know.
It kind of reminds me, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but something in like the invisible illness community is spoon theory. When you were
Yes.
talking about the batteries, it kind of reminded me like, okay, I woke up with, 7 spoons today. So if I need to go to the grocery store, that's 4 spoons. And if I need to
Yes.
pick my kids up from school, that's two. And so really learning how to budget your energy, that kind of clicked for me.
Exactly.
You
And I,
s-
I
okay.
love finding ways to explain these sort of things to people, using the spoon thing so that even though you can't fully understand, you can somewhat get an idea.
Yeah, relate to it. Yeah,
Mhm.
metaphors are my jam. Love metaphors. So you started to allude to other people and how they interact with your symptoms in your life, and how have other people responded to your diagnosis, to your symptoms, both like in helpful or unhelpful ways?
Yeah. Um, well, so first off, when somebody is initially in an accident or has some sort of something that happened that puts you in the hospital, everybody hears, "Oh my gosh, you're in the hospital." Everybody sends you flowers and cards. And for me specifically, I'm laying in the hospital and people are like, "You have brain damage." Oh my gosh. Um, but then you get out of the hospital and I still look normal. I mean, I'm a little bit more mature now, but this is what I looked like before my accident. So then I'm coming out of the hospital and I'm going to work and I'm driving and people say, "You look fine. You look normal. What's wrong with you? What are you talking about?" And so I think that in itself, I mean, that is what an invisible illness is. That in itself is why some people have a hard time understanding me. And not everybody has a lot of patience to try to understand. So I encourage everybody that even if you are fine yourself and your family is healthy and nobody has any issues, maybe you might run into somebody down the road that does, so that you can understand how to help them. Take little notes of all these little things. But yeah, I've had people just really not understand. I'll tell people and I'll explain, hey, I can't go do a whole day at the amusement park because of my chronic fatigue. And they're like, why not? You look fine. So either that or it's the complete opposite. And it's like, oh my God, are you okay? And people overreact. And that's almost even worse because then I'm already overwhelmed. Don't overwhelm me more, you know? So it is very best to just stay calm and say, how can I help you? You know? And the reason why I am so passionate about this right now is I had all throughout my life, actually, my life throughout my TBI, I've had people say, "Don't talk about that. Why would you talk about people? You don't want people to know about that." Recently, I had someone say to me, "Why are you posting about that on your social media page?" And it like lit a fire inside of me. Why would I not? This is my life. And it's not just my life. There are so many people out there that have traumatic brain injuries. I personally know, I think off the top of my head, two people that live within my area that have traumatic brain injuries as well. I know somebody that has an ABI, an acquired brain injury. You know, so there's everybody out there has their thing to deal with.
Morgan, I saw I see your social media posts, obviously, and how you pivot your life, and it's beautiful to see. And I can relate, with the invisible illness thing. Something I often get as I get older, it's less, but still I'm not older. So people always say, "Oh, you're too young for that." Okay, tell my
I get that a
body.
lot.
Yeah, tell my body
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There was an Instagram post I saw of yours. I'm trying to remember now, but my brain fog is coming at me, and I forgot it. Maybe it'll come back for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're so passionate, and it's so beautiful to see, because we need this, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't have time for people to just be nitpicking at what we should or shouldn't be able to do. Just help me,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and something that it comes along with traumatic brain injury can be other symptoms such as anxiety or depression. Um, Sometimes people kind of distance themselves from us, and we can feel isolated. So I think I've been sharing with people that I know, hey, I have anxiety, and everybody else that I have come across, they're like, oh my gosh, me too. So if everybody out here, a lot of people have anxiety. Why are we not talking about it? If you tell me, hey, I have anxiety too, that makes me feel better about myself.
I was just getting ready to say that I was going to tell you, like, thank you, for sharing kind of how you are, putting that information out there. And then also it was like, listen, this is why Amanda and I started this podcast, was because like, and everybody's like, what's your podcast about? We're like, really all things wellness. And you don't have to be, somebody that's in our field or a doctor or something to be a guest here, because we're all humans and we
We
all
are.
are experiencing these things regardless of, what we do for a living or a title. And I love that you are, now I have to add you on social media so I can
Yeah.
these things. So, but can you touch, like, this might, I don't want it to be like my own ignorance, but did you struggle with the anxiety prior to the TBI, or is that something you feel like happened after? I don't know if that's a fair question.
Yeah. I definitely don't think that I had anxiety to the extent that I do now. Just like a lot of other people, I've been through other things in my past before my traumatic brain injury that have, led me to be the way I am. But I think that the anxiety definitely stemmed from the traumatic brain injury. And I mean, that's the thing. We all are human. Just because you don't have anxiety in this in today, that doesn't mean that you're not going to tomorrow. So even if you can't relate to this, you might in the future. I at some point in time, 6 years ago, I was normal. I didn't have a traumatic brain injury. I didn't think, oh, I don't need to know sign language or anything like that. I'm fine. No, just because you haven't had something happen to you or somebody that you know doesn't mean that it won't ever happen. I mean, this is it can happen to anybody. Anything
That was
can.
it. That was it, Morgan. You said it. I was going to say your post the other day because you give so much good information in your post, my brain couldn't in the moment recall what it was. I was like trying to skim the post in my brain visually. That was it. Is that just because you're able-bodied, you're healthy, right? Like with anything, with cancer, right? Like,
Yes.
you know, when it happens to somebody else, you're like, oh my God. And then it comes to your family, or addiction, right? Like, oh, that person, right? Just because it hasn't
Diabetes.
impacted you
There's
today.
so many things. Yes.
Yeah,
So many
a car
separate
accident, you can't,
Yes.
that could happen to anyone tomorrow and your life could be shifted. So like the able-bodiedness, like the gratitude today for what you do have, and not being
Yes.
ignorant that your life could change in a split second.
Yeah. Like you don't have sensory issues today. Appreciate that. You are so fortunate. For me, a really good example, kind of what got me fired up today is I went through the airport yesterday. And oh my God, it was so hard for me to get through. I got to the point where I was no longer able to walk on my own. I required a wheelchair, and I could no longer talk. And people are staring at me, like, but wait, that could be you. Why are you staring at me? You should appreciate that you can walk through the security. You can get up and walk. That's amazing. You can go into a restaurant and not have to wear earplugs and just enjoy your company. That's amazing. That's something that this has gifted me with. They say everything happens for a reason. And if I had to find a reason of why this happened to me, I would say that's why, is because I can appreciate life so much more, because nobody is promised tomorrow. If you're able to go outside and look up at the sky without getting dizzy, you are so blessed. We take things for granted. We really do. People don't even realize it.
No. And Amanda and I, we do a ton, and like our own lives and our work and everything. And what this is triggering in my brain is privilege. It's like us as, myself, I don't struggle with an invisible illness. So I have that privilege. And I feel like not only do we take that for granted, but also our own privilege, I feel like, is what leads us to stare or, to judge, and it's like, hello, like, no, we have to check that for ourselves every day and be like, holy cow, like somebody else's experience is different than mine. My experience is the privilege inside of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think something else that's coming to mind too that we often forget about as you're talking, the grief. The grieving experience of the body I used to have, the functioning I used to have, the senses I used to have, the lifestyle I used to have, the friendships I used to have, or relationships with people, that grief. We say grief, and oftentimes people relate that to a death. But that could be the loss or death of anything, right? The death of your ability to function. And so, like, for you, do you feel like there was a major point in your life, or even still, right? There's no timeline on grief, where you still grieve those things that you used to have?
Yes, I definitely grieve. And it's hard not to think about it. I try not to think about it because you can't go back. I will never be you know, the old Morgan again. I do definitely grieve at one point in time, because I did have the privilege of not having a traumatic brain injury. I had the privilege to be able to just go and do things. I do look back and I miss that, and I'm just like, oh wow, that was amazing. Yeah.
Sorry, Amanda, I didn't know. I felt like you had something in your brain, so I waited a second.
I don't know.
So Morgan, do you mind me asking you about like how your anxiety manifests for you and how you cope specifically with, like the anxiety? Do you cope similar with it as the sensory issues, or do you have like a couple coping skills that work for you as far as the anxiety portion? Not to put you on this,
Um,
but if they're similar,
yeah,
that's
yeah. That's that's something I think my anxiety symptoms are kind of similar to other anxiety symptoms. Something that has helped me is I have sought out therapy, talk therapy, whatever it is. I think that is something that should be common. You shouldn't have to hide it. Yeah, I go to therapy and it's awesome. And my therapist has helped me learn different skills to help cope with my anxiety. Like I was saying earlier, the skill that my one therapist taught me was to use my five senses and look, and pet your dog, and here, what do you hear around? As therapists just, help set you up with different coping skills. Um, some of my anxiety with my TBI, it stems from, okay, I know that I'm going to go into this restaurant and I know what's going to happen to me when I go into this restaurant. I am going to be in sensory overload. So that alone makes me anxious because I know what's about to happen to me. And I've definitely kind of taught myself some meditation, breathing techniques. Personally, I have a medical marijuana card, and that has tremendously helped me. So I think definitely just everybody has to find their own coping skills. Medical marijuana is life-changing for me. It can literally be the difference of whether I can get through a restaurant or if I can walk or not. But it might not be the best for you, So it's all about finding those different coping skills. Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't mean to throw an extra talking point at you, but there was something I feel like for you, you could normalize a bit more, on that piece and how that tied in with the TBI and that trauma. Thank you for that. Normalizing therapy. Of course, we both do that, but then, when our guests come on and do that too, it's the more and more we can get that out there, the better.
Yeah.
I saw it wouldn't be our podcast episode if I didn't reference TikTok. I saw a TikTok the other day that said people talk about how they don't want to pay a stranger, to go to therapy and talk about their feelings. But you're paying a licensed stranger. Otherwise, you're just going to go out there and talk to your friends that have no idea, it might be able to relate and validate you or support you or just be a good support system. But you're paying a licensed person just like you would pay your doctor to go see them, right? It's a professional support in that way. And so every time we get the opportunity to normalize, please go talk about your feelings. Your feelings are so important. They become the physical. So we appreciate that. Absolutely.
We all have our story. This is just mine. I have, life stories before my TBI and after my TBI. And, we all have our stories. It's not just me. Everybody has some sort of trauma or maybe abuse. There's a lot of trauma in the world. It's okay to not be okay. When people used to not understand me, and I didn't quite understand myself because I was so early on in my recovery, people would say things like, "Oh my God, you're crazy," and whatnot. And but am I? Because I was put through something that was so extremely traumatic. You have no idea. Who are you to judge me? Am I going to sit here and judge you for what has happened to you, and now you're having anxiety because that is the result of what happened to you? We all have normal reactions to a crazy world.
Yeah, and
that is trauma
all the time. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that is trauma. Your body is responding normal to an abnormal event. And just because someone doesn't have anxiety, depression, PTSD, you got anger issues. You're very reactive. You isolate yourself. So just because you don't necessarily feel like you fit into a diagnosis, like you said, Morgan, we all have stuff that's a result of what's happened to us. Go ahead, Kelsi, sorry.
No, I was just, the saying I use with my clients all the time, it's super simple, and we probably all heard it, but I always say, something happened to you, not because of you.
Yes.
And they're like, so there's that judgment and that shame and that guilt can be so heavy until not that when other people treat us that way, it's not going to impact us at all. Like, that's not realistic, but we're able to separate it from us and kind of hand it back to them. Like, no, like, that's not for me. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's for you you should look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I am not my TBI. My TBI doesn't own me. It's a part of what happened to me, and it's a part of what has made me who I am today, but it doesn't own me,
Was there a point in your life, Morgan, that because for so many people, something as a traumatic event can be life-shattering and be a defining moment, and all the feelings are valid because that is a grief and that's trauma. Was there a point where you were just stuck in that and you felt like nothing was ever going to get better and maybe that did define you? And then how did you transition out of that to say, you know what, I'm not my TBI? Like, is that where therapy and coping skills came?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a journey. Um, and even though, I am fortunate that I have gotten out of this, everything that I've learned, and that I can be so positive and in good spirits. It doesn't mean that that's the same for everybody else. And yeah, even though I am positive and upbeat today, that does not mean that I was last night. Um, you know, yeah, it's just weird. It's kind of throughout the years, you kind of find your own pace of like, oh, after a year I thought I would be recovered. And then after a year, you're like, oh, okay, this is where I am now. And oh, I wish that I could do that. And yeah, it gets really frustrating. Um and even to this day, sometimes you look back and just say, why did this have to happen to me? So just like everybody else, I have my good days and my bad days, my good moments, my bad moments. I'm not perfect and nobody else is.
And that's my brain translated that a little bit to, like, in a nutshell, that hit me as like the concept of you've learned how to meet yourself where you're at rather than where you feel like you should be,
Mm-hmm.
which is a great, mindset to have, because it keeps you in that present and not, those. I mean, we still feel the other stuff, and like Amanda said, it's very valid, but it's like, how do I bring it back? Okay, this is where I'm at right now, and what do I need right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, shortly after my accident, I had my accident. I was in the hospital for a period of time, and my doctor warned me not to drink any alcohol, and I wanted to be normal like everybody else. So, and I was 21 years old, 22 years old. I wanted to be a normal 21, 22-year-old. So I drank alcohol. There's a couple months, a period of time where I didn't. Um, but then I went out and I partied, and I hurt myself even more. And I started having seizures. And that put me into a really bad depression, because then I could no longer drive. It took away my I don't know, my liberty. And that definitely really had me down. But actually just recently, um, I've just been learning more about myself. Throughout this past year, we've all been a pandemic, and we've had a lot of time to just sit and think to ourselves. And I've really realized more and more things, like, oh my goodness, I was trying to cope with alcohol. I was was trying to be a normal person and just kind of, get rid of those sensory issues. No, let's drink. I'm normal. And it just hit me. Oh my goodness. I was abusing alcohol to cope, you know? And I think we all have to kind of get to know ourselves and realize, whoa, are you taking care of yourself,
No, thank you so much for that piece of saying, like, yeah, I told myself, not that we thought I was invincible or any, but it's almost what it felt like. You was like, everybody else is doing this, and I'm telling myself I should be able to do it. And then I internalized that because it didn't go well. It kind of stirred all of that up all over again.
Yes. Yeah, that's something that a lot of TBI survivors struggle with. I wanna be like you, so I'm gonna put myself in a harmful situation to myself in order to just be the norm.
Yes, absolutely. So we ask every single one of our guests towards the end, as like before we wrap up and everything, if there's anything that you would like to leave our audience with, or a little tidbit or a saying or a mantra that you really love, and then also where our audience can kind of follow your story. So 2 separate.
Yeah. I don't think I really have like a saying or anything, but just if you can take away anything from this podcast in itself and everything that we've talked about, just kind of be a little more open-minded. Treat people how you would want to be treated. Just be, a little less judgmental of people and more understanding, compassionate, that sort of thing. Don't be so judgmental.
Yes, and thank you so much for being here and sharing your story.
Yeah.
I had to say that.
So. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Where can your community? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. That's wait.
Yeah, and everybody can continue following my story on my personal Instagram page, because lately I have been just having this fire burn inside of me and just being so passionate about advocating for specifically traumatic brain injury survivors, but mental health in general. You can find me on my Instagram, Morgan Bennett on Instagram. It's MorganBenne, Morgan Bennett.
I will make sure I link the Instagram to this episode today.
Yeah.
Oh, Morgan, it was so beautiful to have you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys.
I know yesterday was a tough day for you with travel and getting to Florida, and so we appreciate you giving us some of your battery and some of your spoons today.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope that you still have a little bit left to go enjoy the beautiful Florida weather.
Yeah, I was definitely using all my coping skills yesterday to get me here, and it kind of got me ready for this to advocate.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Okay, so audience, make sure you are liking and subscribing. If you don't subscribe, you don't know when the next episode is coming up. If you have any comments, please comment, and we can, if there's any information or questions that are for Morgan, we can definitely get those to her for some responses or feedback if she's comfortable with it. And then make sure you stay tuned. Next week, we have a fellow TikTok therapist again, because we love our TikTok. We have Kimberly Anderson coming to talk about the impact of religion or religious trauma on our identity development. So I am super excited for that. I've personally had many people in my life, clients and, personally connected. And I know Kelsi, being in a rural area, has also had that experience of kind of guiding people through religious trauma. So super excited about that episode. We thank everyone again for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.